What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another live stream. Very happy to have you on this one. This one's going to be exciting for a number of reasons. We're talking about one of my favorite things and aspects of filmmaking, which is audio and sound and creating sound design, which is it's always fascinating to me to be able to craft that, especially when you challenge yourself and you have a scene and you try to do all the sounds from scratch and you try to build that world. In terms of audio, I think it's always super exciting. And the reason why I am particularly pumped for this episode is that we're going to have our first ever guest speaker. And I'm really excited for that. More on that in just a second. But I figured it's time to bring in some experts that do things differently in a different part of the world, maybe, that have their own perspective on a specific part of the filmmaking craft. So I think that this is going to be a nice opportunity for all of us to hear from someone that actually does this professionally, that has worked with a ton of big clients and does some really great work. So we're going to be jumping into all of that. And today's topic specifically, we're talking about communication, and especially when it comes to, collaborating from whether it's a director collaborating with someone that does post audio, to their recordist, to the person that just does your sound design. I think these are really important things to talk about because not a lot of people do. And a lot of times when you are teamed up in a group to make a movie, a lot of things can be overseen that could be very simple to do and that could save you a lot of time and troubles. And that's why today we're talking about communication, what it means to have someone that does the sound design for you, how that person can communicate with the director, with whoever has the vision of the project, and also just the best way to ensure that that goes smoothly and that you can get an end result that actually feels and sounds great. So that's what we're jumping in. We're going to have Alex from 344 Audio very soon. And today we're talking about sound design. So welcome. Let me know in the chat where you guys are from, what you are curious to learn about sound. And let's dive right into it. So welcome. My name is Chris Juni for Chris Art, and welcome to the live streams. These aren't the usual type of videos. Right now we are right in the middle, actually, of our editing workshop, which has been a lot of fun, a lot of stress, but you guys seem to be enjoying it quite a bit. So I'm really happy for that. And there's a new episode coming out tomorrow or maybe Sunday. We'll see how it goes. It's been kind of a crazy week. But we're going to jump in shortly on a Skype call that I had the pleasure to have with Alex. He is a sound designer based out in Manchester. And in fact, let me see if I can show you guys a little bit about the website so you can kind of get familiar with who I'm talking about. So this is the company, and it's 344 Audio, and they do, as you can see, a lot of really cool work. So it's really nice to be able to get that perspective from a professional and see what we can learn as far as audio. So these are all things that I wanted to make sure that could be, scaled down to some ideas that you can have even with small productions, small budgets, or even if you're doing things yourself. And this is only going to be one small section of the Skype call, and I'm actually going to split it up into different topics across different live streams. So I don't know how much more we'll do of this, but if you guys enjoy this episode and if you're enjoying what you're seeing and hearing, definitely let me know in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this as a playback, and then I'll keep editing this stuff together and we'll keep exploring more on audio, sound design, and all those tricks to make your story and your edits feel a lot bigger. So with that being said, now that we know what we're talking about and who we're talking with, I'm going to jump into the Skype call that I had earlier with Alex. And we're going to talk about the art form in itself of collaborating with other people and making sure that you can get the best results from that. So welcome, everyone. I'm here with Alex from 344 Audio. And I guess we could start just by you telling a little bit about what you do. I know you're based in Manchester, and I've seen some of your work, and I think one of the things that stood out to me was the attention to detail that you put into your client work, to the stuff that you do. So I guess just talk a little bit about how it all started, what it means to you, why you're doing it, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so it kind of started when I was a young teenager. I would kind of experiment with music and kind of manipulating it, pitching it down, reversing it, and things like that with various different softwares. And at the time, I kind of assumed that was because my passion was music, but eventually I figured out that that wasn't the right career path for me, because I'm not very much into partying and kind of DJing and things like that. So I thought, how can I take the same skills and apply them to something creative and make a career out of it? And the thing that kind of was recommended to me was to consider film or game audio, and that's kind of how I got into it. It's the power to kind of add an extra layer to a film that is by a lot of people misunderstood, kind of the process. That's why it's so exciting to do it as a job.
Yeah, and I noticed that that's a huge element of also the way that you work. I mean, just from hearing some of the layers, like you said, that you put into it, what I really care about in a lot of aspects of film is story and emotion. I mean, that's what really drives that connection to the audience. And a lot of times people will think that, oh, sound is just whatever I see. If I see footsteps, if I see whatever, I'll just throw that in there, and it's just like filling in gaps. But I think that a lot of people misunderstand the importance of sound design, and how really strong audio and how having like a really good bed of sound underneath your visuals can really elevate your story a lot further.
I mean, there's a combination of things that kind of contribute to kind of telling your story with sound. And one of the biggest parts of that is the collaboration between the director and sound designer. For example, with the directors that I've worked with, and there's been quite a few now, and that's on a variety of projects like short films, documentaries, feature films, and commercials. There's kind of this thing where some directors really, really get into the nuts and bolts of the story with sound, whereas other directors kind of just leave you to your own devices to just experiment. And sometimes when the director gets involved and really starts to not necessarily understand the technical aspects, but understand what that can offer to the project, that's where you get the true synergy, where you've got, a great script, great acting, great cinematography, and then when it gets to the edit, it's already close to being good. And then when you add sound, it takes it to that next level, which is kind of what people aspire to, to create today.
It's important to have that communication where you have, the right liberties for you to do your job to the best that you can, but still respecting the vision of the director and of what the story actually leads to.
In terms of when you kind of creating sound design for a piece, you do have a lot of different options, and it's always important to be conscious of the fact that it's not your film. So even if maybe the director you're working with doesn't quite understand the full the full workflow of the way you're doing things, that doesn't mean that you should kind of lead them in a certain direction. You should always take what they give you and then convert that into artistic output, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, is it hard to find that balance sometimes of like, you sometimes want to take ownership and you see a certain vision for it that's just really great, and other times, it might not be in line with the collaborative aspect of it. And so how would you find that balance with your own ideas and your own vision and still being in line with the project's vision or the director's vision?
I think the best way is to have a lot of communication. I mean, it sounds really obvious, but it's something that I think a lot of people in post-production don't do, and it doesn't come naturally to them maybe. And that kind of comes from getting involved early in pre-production, which is another thing that a lot of people don't think to do as a post-production sound designer. Getting involved from the script writing stage allows you to start kind of interweaving sounds into the story, and also creating your own kind of elements that are going to be put into the film. And then once you get to the stage of implementing them elements, you should show that to the director, see if it's matching with what you discussed in the spotting session in pre-production. And then once you get to the actual final mix, again, speak to the director again. So having that 3-step kind of process where you get involved really early, then you get involved a little bit early, and then you get involved again afterwards with the director. And that gives you the kind of the best collaboration, I found anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In terms of getting a balance.
Yeah, because if I feel like, I mean, with any kind of work, if you're not communicating throughout the process, and you build off of maybe some other idea and it ramifies into something like exciting, could be great, but then it's that impact of building up that sort of work and then showing it at once it's at a stage that's pretty advanced. It could be a little jarring for someone to be like, whoa, this is not what I expected at all. Whereas if it's even the same kind of process but it's both of you there and building up at the same time, it might feel a little bit more like, you know, like kind of easing in or collaborating on smaller ideas that fit on a bigger piece. So I think that could be, I mean, communication is always key.
One thing I would say to directors and to sound designers out there is don't underestimate the person that you're working with. And even if a lot of the people you work with don't understand sound and don't know what they're looking for, that doesn't mean that you won't come across that one person who really does understand it and really does have a clear indication. There's been instances before where I've worked on a project and I've maybe not spent enough time communicating, and then the end result is exactly what you just spoke about, where you've delivered something that's way advanced and then it's exactly not what they're looking for, and then you have to backtrack again and start kind of building things again from scratch, which is always more difficult than just asking the questions from the beginning.
You need to value the team that you're working with, and like you said, never be dismissive of ideas, and that's also from a directing standpoint. Is, you know, you could have a PA that gives you a really good idea, and it could, because it's, again, it's perspectives that are outside of your own head. For yourself with sound, or a director for the vision of it, they still need to be the filter to it all. But I think that at least having that stage where you're still listening. The danger of it is not allowing that stage to happen, where it's like you're blocking off ideas right before you can actually process them and filter them to see if they're good or not.
You know, in today's kind of world with, you know, the post-production lengths getting shorter and shorter and the filming lengths getting shorter and shorter and more is expected per day and everything, you need to be able to listen to people, because if you don't, and you do have to do this backtrack thing, you're going to end up being in a situation where they're going to be going over budget and it's going to be your fault because you didn't actually communicate with them. So it's important to be like open to people's ideas and jump and kind of build on what you just said about you know, like collaboration. It's important to, as a director, one of the best tips I could give you when you're working with a sound designer, it's important to kind of communicate with them, not in technical terms, but in creative terms, but link it back to something that they can relate to. So if, for example, you say you sound design in the sound of a dragon, don't just say to the sound designer, right, I want the dragon to have a big roar. Be specific about something that you can relate that roar to. Is it more similar to a lion, or is it more like a hiss, or is it more like, you know, a kind of a scream, you know? So if you can relate it to something that they can relate to, you're going to get a much more closer result to what you're looking for from a sound designer. So it kind of works both ways with that kind of communication of ideas.
Even for the dragon example, let's say it's someone working on Game of Thrones, and it's one of the big battle scenes with the dragons, for example. Like, they're already thinking about so many elements and so many characteristics to stay true in that sort of world, that I feel like if they don't have a solid starting point of saying, this is the environment that I'm in, this is what this world sounds like, if they don't have that kind of clear direction, it could become very overwhelming, or the end result could kind of feel disjointed, especially if there's like a team of people. So I think that, you know, it kind of goes back to communication, but again, having that clear direction of saying, like, this is what we're trying to make. And if everyone understands that, then, you know, like, the visual effects will tie in with the sound that much better, and that will tie in with the story and with the context of the scene and the subplot, and all those other elements start to kind of flow in, and they kind of they build this relationship with each other that they otherwise wouldn't if there wasn't that initial clear direction, like you said.
If somebody is not contributing as part of a team, whether that's in pre-production, production, or post, that a lot of the time is not due to the budget of the film. And there's films that, you know, have been made on much, you know, on low budgets, mid-sized budgets, and huge budgets that have turned out terrible simply because people have not took the time to communicate. And it's like in any other industry, when somebody doesn't communicate something, when something's being developed, a product's being developed, as it then goes through its life of production and then becomes to the kind of shop where it's being sold, there's lots of issues that can happen along the way, and it's something that can get missed, you know, quite easily. So that's one of the biggest reasons why it's important to really consider, no matter what budget level you're working at, whether that's big or small, consider that throughout. You know, am I talking to the pre-production people enough? Am I talking to people from post in
Hmm.
pre-production? Am I talking to people from pre-production in post? Am I talking to the cinematographer when I'm doing the color grade? You know, am I talking to the sound recordist when I'm doing the sound design? Am I talking to the composer when I'm doing the final mix?
Hmm.
You need to kind of think about how these things interact with each other. And I found that on projects that I've worked on, when the producer and director make those connections, they're the projects where you finish and you just sit there and you're really happy with everything, not just what you've done, but everything that they've done as well. And that's because they've took the time to interconnect with different people.
All right, so a lot of information in there. Honestly, I love this kind of approach. Let me know if you guys dig that. I like the idea of being able to listen into a conversation, and I want to carry this idea through with the future live streams, and also giving you more of an onset and just real experience of other professionals, and just kind of peeking into their process and all of that. So we're going to jump into the live chat in just a second. So if you guys have any sound design questions or any particular area of sound that you guys want to talk about, definitely let me know in the chat right now, and we're going to be talking about that very soon. But I wanted to thank again Alex from 344 Audio for sharing his time. And another thing that I also wanted to bring to your attention is their website. If you go on 344 Audio, there's a section on their services for education, and there's a lot of information on here, and some blog posts that you can find on this website that has a lot of cool inside look at even some case studies when it comes to sound, and it's a lot of theory, which is cool because it doesn't specifically mention any like, it's not a step-by-step tutorial where you have to follow it with a specific program. It's more of the ideas in sound design. So I definitely encourage you guys to check out those case studies to get more information on sound that way. But if you guys dig this, in this conversation, that was only a small portion. I mean, that was like 10 minutes out of probably more than an hour long Skype conversation where we talked about everything. We talked about creating tension and horror through sound. We talked about how to change the vibe and the feeling of a scene just with the sound effects, how to think of sounds in terms of layers, how to stay organized, a ton of stuff that I definitely think is super valuable. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely let me know, and I will cut those other sections up. And in the next live stream, we're going to dive deeper into the aspect of sound design. And then, of course, we have the sound design episode coming up tomorrow or Sunday, which is going to show you a few tricks inside of Premiere that you can use, and a few ideas, a few theory ideas that can help you when you're creating sound design that needs to just feel impactful, big, and just and most importantly, fit your scene in the right way that it's meant to fit. So all right, so I think we can jump into the live chat. I see some people. I see some usual faces, which is really nice. Hey, Eric. Hey, Ahmed Ali. Borat says very nice. I like that. People from Morocco, Pakistan, Canada, Minnesota, Colombia. Wow, that's always nice to see where people are from. It's what I like about these kind of live streams and YouTube in general. Alex says, audio from the game Inside is perfect to me. Yeah, there's a lot of video games that have amazing sound design, and it's really cool to experience sound design in that kind of way. And it's a little different from movies because you can be wearing headphones, and as you're playing and you're moving around, you actually feel the sounds shift if they're done right, and they're actually placed in 3D space in games usually, so you can actually hear them from the source that they come in from, and that's really fascinating to me. Whenever I'm playing games, that's one of the things that stands out. Aside from visually how they look and how the lighting is made, the sound design in games is really killer for a lot of the titles that are coming out, especially recently. They're putting in a lot of attention to detail in that, and it just creates more of an immersive feel, which again is something that you can apply to filmmaking, because you are creating a world that could be real, could not be real. It's coming out of a story, and to make that believable to your audience, to really to really just introduce them to this world that you're creating, sound is a huge part of it. So that's why I'm doing these live streams now that are focused more on sound design for a bit, because there's a lot of ideas that people just usually don't think about. And if you're in a low budget and and you're doing things yourself, like I do most of the time, I do my sound design for pretty much all of my projects. And it's nice to be able to hear a perspective from someone that does it professionally, that has been living and breathing sound for so long, and listening to their thought process and their the way they do things is really inspiring. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I will be sharing more of that soon, because it was really, really awesome. So, all right, let's answer some questions here. I say you drop that episode tomorrow. Says Born Rich Pro. Yeah, I want to. It's just there's a lot going on right now, and staying on schedule has been kind of crazy. But and also I shot the entire episode out of focus the first time around, because I thought I could do it myself and I could film myself among all the other things that I was worrying about that day, and the entire thing was all out of focus. Like, I dumped the footage onto my computer, and from there I realized that it was all completely useless. So I had to shoot it again, and my camera failed the second and third time, so I had to shoot it 4 times. But it's all worth it, because I really think that the information in that episode is going to be really, really nice, and I really can't wait to share it with you guys. As painful as it was to make, I think it'll be worth it. Marcelo says hi from Brazil. Bobek says hello. Poland here. Nice. So Denny Orkart asks, how do you match sound effects with your original audio? Example, don't have an excellent sound, but you have high quality sound effects. This is something that I do a lot of the times, actually. A lot of my production audio in the past has been pretty trash. Sometimes I'll focus on getting the vocals and the dialogue well, but sometimes I skip over, and I shouldn't, but sometimes I skip over on more the ambience and capturing the Foley right then and there. So a lot of the times what I end up doing is recreating a lot of the sounds from scratch, from sound libraries, and there's a lot of different sources that I can share with you guys. But the main thing is to match those sounds to the environment. So you got to think in terms of you're placing sounds in your scene. So where are they being placed? How far from the source through which we're hearing those sounds are they in our world? And once you start thinking about all these things, you can use EQ, you can use reverb and panning and all those things, all those effects that are even right inside of Premiere, to make sure that you can actually fit them to your environment. And we're going to talk about all of this in the episode coming up. So if you guys are interested in seeing how that actually works in practice, then definitely tune in for that episode. And there's a lot to talk about, and a lot of techniques that go into that. I like to learn about how to remove background noise from dialogue recorded on location. So I have the first sound episode that I launched. Actually, it's the last episode. Episode 4 talks about removing background noise. It talks about it in terms of audio, and it looks at the adaptive noise reducer in Premiere, which is super powerful. And with just a few tweaks, you can get some really solid results. But it could be something that we cover in a live stream specifically for that. But right now, definitely check out that video, because it might answer your question. I want to ask, says Tech India, how to get good ambience noise. Will I record it on set? So this is one of the tips that I'm going to be talking about in the next episode. But essentially what it is to capture as much as possible on location, on set. If you have time by the end of the day, and you kind of go through playback in your camera and you see what footage you got, then try to make a mental list, or even an actual list, and think about, okay, well, we saw this guy walking, so we need footsteps. We saw him opening a door and closing it. These are all cool things that you can just grab with a recorder real quick, go around set, redo those movements, and try to capture that sound, so that you don't have to worry about it while you're actually capturing the performance. Obviously, if you can do that, great. But if you don't have that option, then go back and try to capture as much as possible on set. If you don't have a recorder, sometimes even your phone, you go and you record whatever little bit that you can here and there. And at least these are some assets that are in that actual space that sound right, because they're there and they're not just from a sound library. And that can help you a lot. But if not, you can always resort to sound libraries. Some of the sources that I use is Audio Jungle, and I think I have it linked. Yeah, there's a link in the description called Sound Effects for Transitions. It's a collection of sounds that I use a lot for creating those nice edits and all that. So you can check that out, and you can get some of those sounds. That's what I usually use. But yeah, it's definitely, think about reverb, think about fitting, using effects and again, fitting those sounds from sound libraries that could sound completely different, and make sure that they fit the character and the tone and the space of your scene. Hey, just wanted to ask how to fade in and out music in a scene without noticing. It is a very difficult task that differs the pros from the amateurs, says Mohammed. And I agree. It's kind of hard to not make it noticeable. And one trick that I started doing a lot is creating these cutting points that end with like a tail end of a reverb. And if you guys check out the last live stream, the entire live stream was just on that alone. So I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's like you might be hearing a song that's like building up, and then when it needs to stop, it stops, but it's not stopping abruptly. You kind of stop it at a good point where it can kind of trail off with some reverb, like kind of have like a tail end hit of it. So that's one way of doing it. And another way is to count the beats in your head, tap your foot or something, and find a good cutting point or find a good moment in the track where there's maybe a breakdown or something where you can use that to motivate the fade or something like that. John asks, when it comes to monitoring your sound design, what's your go-to headphone set if you're not using reference monitors? I have them right here. So I've talked about these on the channel before. These are the Mies 99 Neo series. I love these headphones. They're not really neutral, so they do have some character to them, but I do like that about them because it gives me more of a real sound of how people are actually going to consume my media. So whenever I'm on the go, and these are just my go-to headphones, definitely check them out. Great company, great brand, great headphones. Denny asks, what is more accurate, headphones or monitor audio? Monitor, I'm assuming like you mean the speakers, like the monitor speakers. They can both be really good. Honestly, whenever you're using headphones, you also have the sound cancellation aspect of it, which helps because then you can really isolate yourself from, like right now, from the window, I'm hearing traffic and all that. So if you're doing background, and room tone ambience, that might affect it a little bit if you're just playing off the speakers. Also speakers, if you're in a room, especially like this one, there's reverb, echoing, and things that happen because you're playing sound in a space, so I might be listening to things a little bit differently. So headphones are usually good, but I like to use both. I'm not too picky, but again, I'm not a sound designer. So Tekenya asks, for a low-budget filmmaker, is the best option to dub the dialogue, as I have a Zoom H1 and records a huge background noise environment while outdoor shoots. So no, you usually want to get the dialogue then and there because it kind of matches the performance. If you're talking about ADR and recording things later, it's always a hassle. It's doable. I did it for a short film recently where the audio was really bad and I had to redo it, but I wouldn't count on it. I would only use it as a last resort. And just invest in some lavs. If you really want to get rid of the background noise and you want to have something close to your source and you don't have the money for a boom op or a boom, there's actually an article, and let me see if I linked that in the description. I don't think I did, but if you go on my website, I have an article on sound gear, like what kind of lavs that you can get for super cheap and get the most quality out of that. So Basic Philosophy on Sound Design asks, wow, there's a lot of good questions. I'm really excited. I'm seeing movement in the chat, which is really good. A lot of these questions I will answer in the next few live streams, just because I'm seeing right now that I'm clocking in almost at a half hour. But I do love all these questions. So hopefully we'll be able to just save them for the next one, and I will keep going deep into sound design. We're going to show another part of the Skype call, and then we're going to talk about that some more. So hopefully I will see you guys in the next live stream, and if not, I will see you in the next episode. Also, before I leave, I know that I mention this every time, and sometimes I slack on sending out these packs, but like I said in the last live stream, to make it up for you, I am not going to send every week the goods, the free assets. Instead, just going to wait probably for maybe this week or another week, and I'm going to send just a massive pack with everything that I was supposed to send, all of the grunge texture packs and all that good stuff. So if you want that, go on chriscart/free, or you can use the first link in the description to sign up to the VIP free asset list, where you will get some free stuff. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. That is not my Instagram. This is my Instagram. And I actually just opened up a new Instagram aside of this. So this is the Chris Car Instagram that you guys are familiar with. And then here it is. Here's my personal account. Just started it. So if you guys want to know more about me personally, see more of my personal life and how I'm going to grow my personal brand, then definitely follow me on here as well. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you tomorrow or Sunday with the episode. And if not, in the next live stream.